alaikum. I had a question expanding on the point of, exposing your child to different challenges and the identity part on developing, a secure identity. Can you speak about the pros and cons of sending your child to either homeschool environment, Islamic school, where it's kind of more like a bubble, and versus a, say, secular school, but then instill the child to be able to keep strong to the Islamic identity, but operate in a not necessarily a Muslim environment?
Now we get the controversial question, right? This is always the biggest one. The biggest arguments come out of this one, which is people always ask me, like, where should I send my kids to school? And those are the three main options people consider, right? Like Islamic school, just a regular public school that's secular, or should we homeschool or come up with some kind of tailored option? And my answer to this is, one, unfortunately, there's not one answer to this. Sometimes each child or each family has certain situations, circumstances, and the children themselves have certain characteristics that make one more appropriate choice. Especially when you're considering homeschooling. For certain children, they learn in a very different way than the average child. And so sending them to a classroom setting may actually not be optimal for them. They may actually miss out on educational opportunities because they didn't get the tailored experience that you would in a homeschool setting. But if I have to speak in a very general sense, I tend to prefer the Islamic schools. And my only reason for doing that is socialization with other young Muslims. At the young ages, I'm not even that concerned with the academics. Like most parents, the reason they don't like sending their kids to the Islamic school is because they feel that the academics are going to be less or weaker than maybe a secular school would, which has higher academics. They learn more stuff and they can be more successful. And then it's where they're going to go to college and where they're going to go to university. And they start thinking like 15, 20 years in advance, and your child is only 5, 6 years old, and you're trying to make a decision of where to go to school. But for me, the socialization, the ability to socialize with other young Muslims who share your belief system, to feel normal in your belief system, because everybody in your school is doing it, and that's part of the curriculum. I find that to be the major benefit to the Islamic schools, not necessarily the academic knowledge, and by the way, not necessarily the Islamic knowledge. We were sending our kids to Islamic school when we were in America, but it wasn't I wanted them to learn the deen there. Learning the deen, that's my responsibility as a parent. I'm the one who should be in charge of teaching them their deen. Whether that be from me myself or exposing them to certain teachers that I want them to learn from. But to send your kid to Islamic school because you think that's going to make them know about Islam, I just think that it helps, but that's not the point. And unfortunately, you can also be very disappointed because some of the worst kids go to Islamic school, like their behaviors, their manners, sometimes they act even worse than the kids in the public school. So I don't send them there for that knowledge, the moral behavior so much. I feel like that is the family responsibility. We should be instilling the morals and the deen and the faith in the child. The academics, if they're at a younger age, I don't mind that either, because most children, as long as they're not intellectually disabled, they will catch up to whatever curriculum they're exposed to. It's very natural. Even if let's say they go to Islamic school for the first 5, 6 years, and then in middle school they get transferred to a public school, they might struggle for that first year, but they'll catch up, and most of the learning difficulties can be identified and addressed. So I'm not too worried about it from an academic standpoint. As long as they're learning I have some standard, like there should be some basic knowledge that the kids are getting in school, some basic idea of literacy and math and science, and okay. But as long I'm very I'm very loose with that. It doesn't have to be high level for me. As long as they meet some basic understandings, and I still prefer the Islamic school because why? Because of the social context of being around other kids. That's a normalized experience for them. The prayers, the fact that all these other people share my belief system, and I'm growing up with them. To me, that's so valuable. And maybe it's less I don't really know in the Malaysian context if that's the same thing, but in America, because Muslims were the minority, it's, to me, that's very important, so that, later on in life they always have this social group. Like, I look at my wife, she went to Islamic school most of her life, until she went to high school. And I didn't. I went to the public schools. And I think, alhamdulillah, we both turned out fine, but the main difference I notice is, like, even now in life, she has this network of people that she grew up with in the community, Muslims, that are her peers, that she can always kind of rely on and plug into. And I'm less connected in that way. I have some good friends here and there, but I don't have this network of people that I grew up with, shared that context with. And so I feel like that's always been a valuable piece of the Islamic school experience.